Hey, Shalom, Akim Shalom. First and foremost, as always, I would like to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone that taught us this truth and also teaching this truth, and much peace, love, and salutation to the elect, beginning with 144,000, all the way down to the large multitude that believes, and who the Lord will deliver in these last days. To you all I say Shalom. I'm the brother Tazamah from the Great Millstone Dallas camp, coming back today with another quick lesson, and I pray this lesson is edifying to the elect. And shalom to you as well, you Akwath, or you sisters that believe. Shalom to you as well. And I want to do a lesson on this article. I'm not too sure of what the title of the lesson is going to be yet, but this goes to show you, who's really pulling the strings, all right, behind Donald J. Trump. All right, and as we say, beginning with the apostles on down, Donald J. Trump is nothing more than just a front man for the global elite that are really pulling the strings behind closed doors. All right, these are the this is what you call the shadow government, for lack of better words. All right, when you read about Lucifer, all right, in Isaiah the 14th chapter, all right, that's talking about the illuminated ones, and they're not illuminated with righteousness. They're not illuminated with the true light. Their light is darkness. All right, their light is wickedness. Okay. And as you see here, this is from the People's Voice.tv. It says, I'm just going to say, our childs praise Trump after coup in Venezuela. One of the last nations without a our child central bank. All right, let's read that again. Our childs praise Trump after coup in Venezuela. One of the last nations without a our child central bank. All right, because as you know, all right, yesterday, or in the wee hours of the morning, yesterday morning, America, headed by Donald J. Trump, pretty much orchestrated a coup d'etat, which really a coup d'etat is pretty much like a government overthrow, and it could also be from internal. It could be from within, where you pretty much have an insurrection that could happen within. All right. And the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, was pretty much him and his wife were so-called quote unquote captured. OK. And with that being said, you have the our childs, which are, this goes back to the elite banking families that are ruling the world. All right, the one of the chief houses of Edom, which comes from the the house of Amalek, which they're Edomites. Okay, and when you read it, all right, let's get this. Amalek shall be the chief of the nations, or the first of the nations. All right, let's get that real quick. This is Numbers 24 and 20. All right, it says, and when he looked on Amalek, he took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations. All right, and Amalek are the tiny tops. All right, those people who claim to be the true chosen people, the Jewish, I say the Jewish people. All right, they're really of the tribe of Amalek, which comes from the stems from the house of Edom, Esau, Edom. All right, it says, and when he looked on Amalek, he took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations. And when you get that word first, that word is Ra'ash. All right, let's get that real quick. I'll probably turn my Wi-Fi off. I'm in my car right now. Let's do it again. All right. Yep. So let's get this word first here. That word first is Ra'ashiath. All right, Ra'ashiath. Ra'ashiath. All right. It says first, earliest of nations. All right. It also shows down here like the beginning or the chief. When you get that, you see the beginning, best, chief, because the root word goes to Ra'ash, which means head, top, summit, upper part. OK, and these banking families that are ruling the world. All right, whether it be on the western side as well as in the eastern side, they're all moving the pieces together, and it's Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai controlling them. All right, they're moving the pieces together. All right, he's using them, I rather say, to move the pieces together, ultimately because there's going to be a new financial system that's getting ready to be set in place, which is going to be digital. All right, which all roads are going to lead to the mark of the beast. Okay, but in the midst of them doing that, the Lord is going to have it to as these various different elite banking families they're going to fight each other. You see that, and they're really fighting for position. Okay, it's going to be really a destruction from inward. It's going to be a destruction from inside. Okay, So going back, it says Amalek, and when he looked on Amalek, he took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, but his latter end shall be that he perish forever. Okay, because that's what's going to happen to these banking families that are ruling the world. Remember, the scripture says in Job 9:24, the earth was given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? Okay, and the wicked, when you read in Malachi, the 1st chapter, the wicked are alluding to the Edomites. The scriptures call them the border of wickedness. All right, it says, in a development that raised eyebrows across alternative media, members of the powerful Rothschild banking dynasty issued public praise for President Donald Trump following the military intervention in Venezuela. It says Nate Rothschild, all right, which this is Nathan Rothschild, right, CEO of the Volta Group and prominent heir to the Rothschild financial empire, issued congratulations to Trump in the wake of U.S. military action targeting Venezuela's government and financial system. And you got to ask yourself, if this was just this what's the word I'm looking for? If this was just a move from America to liberate Venezuela from oppression and a dictator, and that's what they always do. They did the same thing with Saddam Hussein with Iraq. They did the same thing with Bashar al-Assad in Syria. They did the same thing with Muammar Gaddafi in what was that, Yemen, if I'm not mistaken. Libya, excuse me. They did the same thing with Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. Okay, and they're doing the same thing here in Venezuela. But the thing about Venezuela is that they don't have a central bank that's being ran and operated by the elite. Okay, that's why there's been all these sanctions, because Venezuela has really been crippled for a long time, by America, with sanctions, whereas they can't necessarily move their money without going through the SWIFT International Bank, the banking system. Now they do have allies, which is Russia, China, and Iran. Russia supplies them with particular missile defense systems. China provides them with particular contracts and things of that nature for them to be able to have deals with their oil, because China's the number one producer, or excuse me, China's the number one buyer when it comes to oil. And Venezuela has the largest natural gas reserves on the planet. It's just that they have their crude oil is trash, so pretty much it has to be mixed with oil that comes from Iran for it to even to even be somewhat good, man, because the infrastructure in Iran is all kinds of trash. You got underground pipes that burst damn near every single day. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, the crude oil is so trash that it can't even really flow through its pipes very, very well. But you got to ask yourself, if Venezuela has these allies of Russia, China, and Iran, how come there hasn't been a response yet? Because ultimately this was a setup. Okay, they're getting ready to transition over to a new system. All right, let's get into the precept. I don't want to be idly speaking too much. Let's get Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. All right, this is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 5. It says, yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death and cannot be satisfied. And this is talking about Esau's insatiable appetite. Okay, because Esau is not going to stop, but the spirit's on him to not stop. That's why you have Donald Trump in the spirit that he's in right now, whereas he's pretty much a dictator. All right, he's going into these various different regions of the earth, pretty much just bombing people. He bombed Nigeria a few weeks ago. Stated that there's ISIS, and ISIS is in Nigeria, so we gotta go over there and liberate Nigeria. Now he's talking about conquering Greenland. And this man is in the that's why the scripture says he has a look more stout than his fellows, man. He's a proud man. He neither keeps at home, but with his pride, ultimately it's going to lead to his destruction. He's talking shit about Colombia, pretty much warning Colombia for them that they next on the list. All right, so let's read that again. It says, yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations and heapeth unto him all people. You see? And that's exactly what Esau does, man. All right, he goes around the whole world conquering. And what does he do it with? He does it with the sword. Okay, that's why when he went over there in the wee hours of the morning and bombed Venezuela and took the president, the Venezuelan military ain't gonna be able to do shit with the American military, man. You see, that's why it's gonna take all these nations to jump Babylon, man. Because right now America is looking like Debo. You know, America Deboing everybody right now. You see, that's why the next verse says, verse 6, it says, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? You see, because just imagine if Venezuela did that to America. Just imagine if Venezuela, did the same thing and, bombed particular places of D.C. and then captured President Donald J. Trump. All bets would be off. World War III. That would be World War III. You know? Because NATO allies would get involved, EU allies would get involved, Russia would get involved, China would get involved, India would get involved, Pakistan would get involved, Brazil would get involved, India would get involved, South Africa would get involved, Saudi Arabia would get involved, Iran, everybody would get involved. You see? That's how you know that Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai is in control, man. Okay? It says, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. All right, and Bishop Nathaniel, that thick clay is not talking about the nations. The thick clay is talking about the nations, America and all the nations. No, it's talking about debt. All right, when you get that word thick clay in the Hebrew, that word is ibatyat. Okay, ibatyat. That's why it's important to go into the Hebrew, as Bishop Nathaniel calls it Ebonics. That's why that's why they don't understand. Ultimately they don't understand because the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai ain't dealing with them. All right. But this is why you got to go into the Hebrew and you got to go into the Greek to understand what words mean, or else you just gonna be winging it. Anyways, let's say it about him. But that word thick clay says weight of pledges, heavy debts. Okay, so that thick clay is talking about debts. Okay, and how does America really run these various different nations? All right, he'll take them over. He'll overthrow these various different nations, whether it's by a proxy that's within that that's within that nation. All right, they'll set up a puppet leader that's doing the bidding of America. All right, and then pretty much with the bidding that they're doing it, with the bidding of America that they're doing, I'd rather say, they'll put that nation in heavy debt by way of loans and by way of credit that they can never pay back. That the loans and things of that nature that come by way of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and that's how these nations, stay in perpetual debt, and that's how America was able to get rich. Is by these various different nations under debt. Okay, but it's really the Archilds that are in control. Okay, it says the optics are impossible to ignore. Venezuela is one of the very few nations on earth that has historically resisted the establishment of an Archild-controlled Western-style central banking system. See that? And it's the same thing as well with Iran. That's why they want a foothold within these various different nations as well too. Okay? Because once again, Iran. When you look at Iran wants to blow Israel off the map. And if America can have a foothold, once again, if America can have a foothold in Venezuela, all right, which is what they want to do, okay, they can control, they can pretty much control energy on the western side of the world, on the Western Hemisphere. And this is really it's also too, like Elder Ariala made a point, this is also too going into a fact of how this is America pretty much telling Russia and China to pretty much, hey, look, y'all better chill. Because Russia can't really make a move right now because they're occupied with Ukraine. Then China really can't make a move like that right now because they occupied in the East China Sea. With the over there in that region of the earth. And you see, here's the post by Mr. Archild himself. It says, well done, DJ Trump. Venezuela Venezuela library, which like Liberate Venezuela maybe. It says, for years, Venezuela's financial independence has made it a target of sanctions. regime change efforts, and economic warfare. Okay, economic warfare. And once again, that's how America puts these various different nations in heavy debt. Okay, as a matter of fact, when you read down, continue reading down in Habakkuk 2, this is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 9. It says, "Woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil." Okay, and that evil covetousness that he has that he has gotten unto his house is pretty much being a scoundrel, man. You know, is getting riches by what's the scripture? Dishonest. Let me see. Dishonest. Let me see if I can find that. Well, that's not. Maybe I'm thinking of another one. I thought the word dishonest gain was in there, but it's not the one I'm thinking of in Ezekiel. But let's actually get this. Let's get Ecclesiasticus chapter 10. All right. This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 10, verse 8. It says, "Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another." You see? And that's how Esau gets down. He gets down with the sword, which causes all kinds of injuries. The dealings that he does is dishonest, and the riches that he got has been by complete deceit, man. You know, yeah. I mean, even just when you look at the the American dollar, that the American dollar is just full of just deceit all over it, man. You know, it's not backed by anything. You know, it's funny money. So in that regard, the kingdom is going to be translated from the Edomites to the Israelites. All right, Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. Okay, let's get another precept. It was one that popped in my mind as I was reading that. The dishonest dealer, dealer treacherously. Yep, Isaiah 21:2, it says, "A grievous vision is declared unto me. The treacherous dealer dealeth treacherously, and the spoiler spoileth." All right, and that dishonest dealer that's dealing treacherously is talking about America, Esau, which Esau controls America. These elite banking families that are ruling the world just uses America, all right, as pretty much as the hammer of the earth, all right, to pretty much stamp down the residue of all the various of all the various different other nations on the earth. All right, it says, "Go up, O Elam, besiege, O Media. All the sign thereof have I made to cease." Okay, Elam and Media. This actually lines up. All right, with this actually lines up with Isaiah the 13th chapter. All right, beginning with the Medes. You know, when in the Medes in Isaiah the 13th chapter is talking about Russia. All right, but also too, Russia's going to have a coalition of nations with them, as it says in Ezekiel the 38th chapter, which Iran's going to be one of them nations. Okay. So once again, let's read this again. It says, "For years, Venezuela's financial independence has made it a target of sanctions, regime change efforts, and economic warfare." I'm curious. Let me see something real quick. Okay, it don't got it. It's all good. I was gonna see if it had like an AI overview. It says, "Now, following direct U.S. intervention, observers note that praise from elite banking figures appears to confirm long-standing suspicions about who truly benefits from foreign liberation campaigns." That's why, you know, when you look on the news now, all right, you'll see people cheering. As a matter of fact, let me see. You'll have people cheering for the Venezuelan leader being captured. I seen it earlier today. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, people cheering in the streets and things of that nature. Let me see if I can find it. It probably updated, so it's all good. But yes, I mean, let me see, because it's pretty much all over the news. But you had pretty much people in Venezuela that was pretty much cheering, you know, the Venezuelan president being captured. People in the streets. Trump warns acting Venezuelan leader will pay a big price if she doesn't cooperate. You see that? So really, you know, we understand and know what's going on, man. Okay, we understand and really know what's happening behind closed doors and who's in control, who's really the one setting up these wars and things of that nature. All right, and this is from a post, an AI overview post. It says, no, Venezuela does not have a our-child central bank. The Central Bank of Venezuela, the Central Bank of Venezuela, Banco Central de Venezuela, BCV, is a publicly owned institution responsible for the country's monetary policy and currency. And with that being said, that's why Venezuela has been pretty much underneath all kinds of sanctions for all these years, man. To the point whereas the Venezuelan the Venezuelan currency has been completely devalued, man. Whereas it'll take a suitcase of money just to buy a loaf of bread. You know? But they'll use these clips of people in the streets, protesting and, down with Maduro. And that's all really set up from the West. And then simultaneously at the same time, you got this going on in Iran too. The Iranian people protesting as well too. So we already know what it is, man. It says, fueling the controversy further are comments by our-child heiress Dame Hannah Archild, in which she confirmed that no major wars are fought and no heads of state move without the approval of the Archild family. Okay, and that's how it's always been. Okay, all these various majors. There's a video by Michael Rivero on YouTube called "All Wars Are Bankers' Wars." It's called "All Wars Are Bankers' Wars." Okay, and that's a very, very good video, and I highly recommend brothers to watch that. As a matter of fact, let me see something real quick. Yep, because I had it saved in my my watch later from a while ago. But this is it right here. This is All Wars Are Bankers' Wars by Michael Rivero. All right, and it pretty much gives the breakdown. All right, on pretty much how all these wars are orchestrated and set up by the Global E. Okay, this is the page here, Harry Braun 4688. This is 9 years ago. All Wars Are Banker Wars by Michael Rivero. So you can type that in yourself and look yourself. But I want to play this little clip here. It's a 1 minute clip.
This is an extraordinary story. So he was born in a place called the Judengasse, which was a Jewish ghetto, basically. And it was the house that he lived in when he eventually had 13 children was only...
And see, she's going to the establishment of the Archild dynasty, which we know these Archilds to be the high-level elite banking family of the Edomites. Okay? And he had 13 sons.
14 feet wide, and he lived there with his very, very overpowering and dominant and an incredibly brilliant wife.
I think he might have 5 sons. It's 13 or 5, one of those two, but it might have been 5 though. It's lucky.
Who was called Guttel. He was determined to get out of this ghetto. At nighttime, the ghetto was closed. You weren't allowed to leave. The street was so narrow that...
And before their name was changed to Archild, their last name was Bauer. Okay, which Bauer, when you break that word Bauer down, it means peasant. Because that's really ultimately what they are, man. They're the basis people of planet Earth. You see? But the Lord was the one that established them and put them in a high level position. Scripture says, and promotion cometh neither from the east nor from the west nor from the south, but the Most High, He's the one that puts down one and sets up another. The scripture also says that that the kingdom would be ruled by the basis of men. Let me get that real quick. Daniel 4, I ain't read this in a while. Daniel 4:35, it says, or is it the basis of men? Or is it 2:35? No, not Daniel 2. I'm tripping. Hold on. 4:17, Salakia. This it says, this matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men. He said that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua is the one that's ultimately ruling amongst these various different rulers, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basest of men. You see, the basest of men, and the Edomites are the basest of the basest individuals on the planet. But just for the Lord to show forth his power, he put them in the highest level. He put them in the highest level. When I say them, specifically, I'm talking about the elite banking families. He put them on the very top as we opened up with Numbers, the 24th chapter, that Amalek is the first of the nations. You see, but just to show forth his power as well, he's going to show how fast he's going to bring them down back to rags. They're right now they're in a high level and they're in a rich position. Yeah, they're in a lofty position, but the Lord is going to bring them down. He's going to bring their haughty looks down. Okay.
No sunlight could penetrate. There was no plumbing. There was no sewage. There was nothing. So everything you can imagine happened in this street. And unsurprisingly, he wanted to get out of there. And he started a small coin business, and that did reasonably well. But actually, and this is where it ties into legacy, his great strength was to send his 5 sons.
Okay, yeah, his 5 sons.
To the capitals of Europe at that time.
The hell is that?
What they did is they set up, in effect, the first international banking system. So whereas everyone used to be in separate different countries or separate cities until then, these 5 boys communicated with each other, sometimes by pigeon, and they wrote to each other in Judendeutsche, which was a kind of Yiddish German vernacular. And that is why they were so successful. And this absolute belief in togetherness, you've got to stand together, you've got to work together, you've got to work across borders, you've got to work with rules. And by 1789, when the last one went, to 1815, so a very, very short period of time, it was said that no government or king would consider going to war without the Rothschilds supporting them, because that was how incredibly influential and powerful they had become.
Now think about that. No country or world leader will never go to war. Let's hear that last part again. They will never go to war without the Rothschild or the Rothschilds giving the green light for it to happen.
It was said that no government or king would consider going to war without the Rothschilds supporting them.
You see that? And that goes into all these various different wars, whether it's the Revolutionary War, and the Revolutionary War, was based upon, something called the Currency Act, and pretty much with the Currency Act, it was, man, I don't want to butcher it. Matter of fact, let me just do this real quick. What was the Currency Act? What was the Currency Act? I don't want to butcher it. So it says the Currency Act, primarily the one passed in 1764, was a British law that prohibited American colonies, because you had the 13 colonies that was here in America, which came over from Britain, which in this time, this was the beginning of the establishment of the Little Horn. It says was a British law that prohibited American colonies from issuing their own paper money and restricted the use of existing colonial currency as legal tender. See, so they couldn't issue with the Currency Act. They couldn't issue their own money. They had to use money that was coming that was pretty much issued from Great Britain. All right. It says aiming to protect British merchants and depreciated colonial notes, but instead causing severe financial hardship and fueling resentment, becoming a key grievance leading to the American Revolution, and that was all set up, all right, by the elite banking families, man. Watch that. Hey, watch that video. Watch that video. All wars are banking wars, man. You see? But it goes to show you the power, all right, that these elites have, man. That's why here, this is another article. It says Trump says the U.S. will run Venezuela following Maduro's capture. You see, and this is pretty much an act of terrorism on a foreign country. But America does this, and they just seem like they get away. You see, that's why the scriptures talk about how this is the nation that smote all other nations with a continual stroke, for lack of better words. Let me get that real quick. Bear with me. Yep. This is Isaiah 14:5. It says, Yahweh hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke. He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted and none hindereth. Because ultimately what's going to happen is that America's going to be completely exposed. All right. And there's going to be something that's going to happen. Whereas all these various different nations is going to jump the shit out of America. And they all going to shoot their missiles at this place. And the only ally that America's going to have is going to be the state of Israel. And the only ally that the state of Israel is going to have is going to be America. And those are going to be the two places that the Lord is going to completely pelt with fire. America's going to be completely destroyed by ICBM thermonuclear missiles. And the state of Israel is going to be completely destroyed by ICBM thermonuclear missiles and fire from the chariots on both land masses as well. All right. But the only thing is that America is never going to be rebuilt. All right. Now, the state of Israel is going to be, the state of Israel, is going to be rebuilt because that's going to be our homeland. All right. That's going to be the headquarters. All right. And so that's going to be rebuilt. But America is not going to be rebuilt. All right. Verse 7 says, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. And that's going to be whenever America falls, man. Esau's put down. Okay. After carrying out a regime change operation in the oil-rich South American country, President Trump said the U.S. will run Venezuela until such time as a safe, proper, and judicious transition can take place. See, and they just get to control, the politics of these various different nations. You see, but again, you seen who gave praises was the Archild family, letting you know who's in control. Okay. So I pray this lesson was edifying to the elect. Once again, I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, Bashem HaKakodash. Double honors to the apostles, bishops, and elders, great millstone that taught us his truth and that's what teaching his truth, and much peace, love, and salutation to the elect. Until next time, Lord willing, I say shalom.